Hello everyone, it's Katrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique. Today I'm going to talk about how to make some wire ovals without having to use soldering. And I want to show you two examples here and what I like about one and what I don't like about the other one. And I'm going to show you how to make the one that I do like. Alright, so if you'll notice, I think the best way to show you guys is for me to just show you what I'm talking about, and we'll make the wrong one. I use this crappy galvanized wire, 20 gauge wire that I had for some other purposes a long time ago. And I kept it around because basically it makes a real good practice wire. I'm just going to cut a piece of wire, and I'm going to take something here and make an oval and show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm just going to use this jar of cut loop here to start bending my wire around. I'm going to bend it nice and slow till I can try to line up my two ends so that they meet pretty close to even right there. And I'm going to bring it in a lot more because we're just practicing. Alright, so if you look at these two particular components, if you look at this one, you see it looks really good. When you roll it on its side, everything is on the same plane. See how beautiful that looks? It's made really well. On this one, if you'll notice, when I turn it on its side, it is off the plane. This wire, when it crossed over the base wire, it made this bump. And it took me a long time to figure out how I could avoid having that bump in my wire. And I finally figured it out. I didn't watch a video. I just came up with it one day when I was reading a book or something. I thought, well, I'm going to try that. And it happened to work out. But first I'm going to show you why you get that bump. So here's my little oval. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a little loop on the end using my round nose pliers. We'll make one side be our little loop. Just make a small little loop right there. And now if I were to just bring this wire over and start wrapping it across this wire, let me show you what happens. This is how you get the bump. If I bring it right here, and I come down just a little bit, to make my little neck, and I just start wrapping it around, which I'm not going to do a great job here because I'm just showing you guys. And I start bringing it around to wrap it like that. You see I have already created that little bump. You can see it right there. It's not going to lay flat. This wire is really hard to work with, guys. So if I bring it around the back, you can tell it even more. So if you look at it from the side now, you can see once again that it's not on the same plane as the other wire. And it does not look as good as this one. So I'm not going to use my crappy wire to show you how to do it the way I figured out. I'm going to get some good wire out. So give me just a minute. I'm going to come back and show you guys how to make it look much nicer. So what I'm going to be using is this 20 gauge Bead German style half hard wire in the gold color. And I've cut myself two lengths that are 3 inches long. Now when you're working on a real project with your wire, you want to flush cut both of your ends. So I'm just going to hold them together like this. I'm going to take the flush side of my cutters here, which is the back. And I'm going to put that towards the part of the wire I want to keep, which is this long side. And I'm going to line it up and make it look as flat as I can get it. And I'm just going to snip. I'm going to hold those into position, and I'm going to flip it over to this end. And I'm going to do the same thing up here. I'm going to make myself a little flush cut right there on this end. So now I have two equal length wires, and I have my nice little flush cut ends on each side. When you're making jewelry as a gift or for yourself or to sell, you want to make sure you have a nice professional finish and look to everything. So I'm just going to take my little flat file, and I'm going to just file the ends of these wires nice and smooth until they're good and flat and look really pretty. Let me bring it in close so you can see what I'm talking about. Even when you use your flush cutters, sometimes you get this little beveled edge here. And just going to keep filing until it's nice and flat and pretty. And I'm going to do that That's much better, see? I'm going to do that on both sides of my wires. So when I'm making jewelry, I shouldn't say when I'm making a project, so when I'm making jewelry, I like for everything to come out looking as close to identical as I can get it. So before I form my eye loop at the top, I need to shape my oval. So I can do that several different ways. I can find small objects like, this little cut lube. I can buy a mandrel, which I really like these little mandrels. I got this little Bead Buddy set. It comes with a round mandrel, all these different steps and sizes, the oval, triangles, and square. And it's just plastic, but it's a nice hard plastic, and it works pretty good. And it has this little handle that you can just insert each different one down into the handle. So you can use it like that. You can also use something like this, which I have this large, this is called a wrap and tap pair of pliers, which you have these 3 different size large barrels on one side, and then you have this little half round, half flat nose here on this barrel on this side. So I could basically just hold my wires together and do it this way, but I want to kind of mark my center. So what I got to do is I've got to measure and do a mark. Let me bring my camera forward so you guys can see. I got this big, huge cutting mat from a sewing supply store. You can see I've burned it with my soldering torch and all kinds of stuff, but it's pretty neat because I can just take it, I can lay these wires down right here, and I can find my center real easily. So I'm just slightly under 3 inches here. I'm just going to grab a Sharpie. We've got these nice little fine tip Sharpies. And I'm going to come up 1.5 inches, and I'm going to mark my center point on both wires. Just like that. Real easy. Nothing major. Now I pick my wires back up. Scoot my camera back. And I'm going to try to line my 2 little marks up. I really only need to see one as long as my 2 wires are lined up on the ends like this. I'm going to take this pliers, and I'm going to lay that mark. I don't know if you can see it in there, but I'm going to lay that mark in the center of the barrel, the lower barrel. And I'm just going to bring that down just like that. And there I pretty much have a perfect center. So I can then just take my thumb on one side, my forefinger on the other side, and I can just start bringing these up. And if I'm off a little bit, I can manipulate it as I work so that my center comes up nice and even on both sides. I can then switch it up to this next size barrel here, the next smaller one, and bring it even closer, just like that. So what I want to do is I want to bring these wires to where they cross over each other just a little bit, just like that. And then I can let go. And like I said earlier, because I want everything to come out as identical as I can possibly get it, I need to make an eye loop on one side of my wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these little multi-step looping pliers, and I'm going to use this smallest barrel here. So I need to turn it this way, away from myself. I'm going to put my wires in between the 2 barrels, keeping them as lined up as close as I can get them. If they get messed up, just fix them before you do anything else. Just make sure you get them lined up as close as you can get them, and then try to hold on to them like that. So now I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to grip both of those wires at the same time. You're going to take your finger and make sure you can't feel anything poking up between the barrels, and I can't. So now I'm just going to roll my simple loop away from myself. I'm just going to roll backwards, keeping my thumb in the inside as I push and bring that all the way around till it touches the wire. You can look at it, just like this. And push a little bit more if you need to, but you want those to touch. So let's see how we did. Take them off. And there we have these beautiful eye hooks, our loops right there. So now you can see that as I rolled this down, this side stayed up. But this is going to be the part that I use to wrap around over here to close up this oval. And I think I might need a little bit more wire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like go back to my wrap and tap, and I'm going to grab a little bit of off center right here with the smaller barrel. And then I'm just going to use my thumb and push this other side up so that it's longer. I'm not really going to make anything with these little contraptions. I'm just going to show you guys how to do it. So now I need to do my wrap across my wire, but I don't, like I said, I don't want to have that bump. So what's a girl to do? Well, I'm going to show you guys a little trick. I'm going to get these wires lined up as close as I can, my two components, so that they look really nice and even. And I'm going to take out some flat nose pliers. So I got these little flat nose pliers right here. And I'm going to grab my wires right down here, about where I want. If you can eye it up this way, wherever you want the crossover to actually be is where you want to grab with your pliers. You want your plier nose below that mark. So now I've got that all lined up. Hang on one second. Let me get myself back in my groove over here. I'm going to have to bring this out just a little bit. But I can see where I put my pliers is right here. Now I just widen this out a little bit because I need some room to push these wires straight over. You notice the nose of my pliers is below the mark. I'm just going to push those straight down at an angle, straight across, just like this. And bring it up just a frog hair. So now this is what I have. Now I could take them apart. And you can see that they're pretty darn close to exactly like this one, just is a little bit sprung out. But here's what you have right there. So once I have my shape made, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to center my eye loop. So I've put my small barrel back onto my eye loop, and I've got the larger barrel back here on the inside edge of the wire, and I'm just going to gently rock it till it's centered like this over the wire. Now, here's my initial shape that I made right here. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to come in and I'm going to grab this entire length of wire that I bent over, and I'm going to bend it downwards so that this is what my situation is looking like now. Now I'm going to bring this wire across just like that. And I am going to wrap, for sake of this particular lesson, I'm going to wrap upwards because basically this wire is really stiff and I have a real hard time wrapping it. So I'm just going to hold everything right here firmly in my fingers and leave myself a little bit of room to wrap on that neck right there. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers. I'm going to bring that wire across the bottom and I'm going to pinch it in just a little bit like that. And don't worry about this right here. You can reshape it when we're done. I'm going to come back across the top and bring my wire all the way across and give it a wrap. I'm going to bring it back downwards this way. And if you need to, you can use your chain nose pliers to tighten your wraps. And I want it to come all the way across one more time. So I'm going to bring it right back around to half mast back here in the back, so that this is what I have. And before I do anything else, I'm going to get rid of that sharp point. I'm going to bring my flush cutters in as tight as I can get it and snip off that sharp piece. Just like that. So now I got to do some straightening up here. The first thing I want to do is fix the top of this just a little bit. I got to bring these wraps close to the top of this neck. So I'm going to scooch this up using my chain nose pliers. Just pinch inside the loop and pinch along the bottom wrap and pinch it up. Now I'm going to bring these pliers in. I'm going to put my oval back on this smaller loop down here, and it might take a little finagling on the smallest barrel. And I'm going to center it around on the top, just like that. I'm going to take and wiggle it and get a nice shape on the bottom part, right here. You can even mash down if you want to, like that, and get that part of your shape looking good. Then open it slightly, and then just gently hold the grasp the eye loop with your fingers, and just gently push down like that until your shape comes out looking the way that you want it to. And then you have this beautiful oval wrapped loop that does not look all twisty and weird up here like this one does. Always when you've making a component such as this, you need to take your finger and see if you feel any sharp edges, which I have a pretty sharp edge right there. So what you need to do is you need to determine which way it's going, for one thing. So mine is coming across this way. So I need to take these chain nose pliers and I need to pinch that down as close into the base wire as I can get it until you can no longer feel that sharp edge. So it doesn't hang up on somebody's hair, clothing, or potentially, cut somebody's finger or something. All right, so there we go. Now, because we used several tools to help us ensure that our earrings come out as close to identical as they can, I want you to take a look at my second earring, and we'll line them up and check our plane and everything and see how close we came. And if you'll look, everything came out pretty darn good. Looking very identical here. So now you have two beautiful little components that you can use on your jewelry making that look as close to identical as you can get them. So now that we've done some practice work, I'm going to show you guys how to make a shape like this so that we can make a wire wrap design such as either one of these here, and we can make a little project. So for this time I'm going to be using some dead soft phosphorus bronze wire. Now this is actual, ordered from Rio Grande, some really good wire. When you're making jewelry, it's best I like to steer clear of these particular wires here unless I'm doing something really simple, because I will show you, like when you start wrapping with them, you actually start pulling that finish right off. So these were just a practice round. I was playing around with the concept, just like this was a practice round. So I use that cheap wire for that. But when I get ready to make a serious design, I use better materials. So I've got a 6-inch piece of my wire cut here, and I've already filed my ends flush. I'm going to get my second wire. I'm going to start by filing this end flush first, so that I can make sure I get both our wires actually, as close to perfectly even as I can get them. So once I get my end nice and flush, it takes a couple of minutes maybe to get a nice smooth end. There, that's good. Then I am going to use my nylon job pliers if I need to make sure that this wire is nice and straight. I like to pull real tight right there as soon as I get to the end of it to make sure that I'm getting a nice bounce back and everything's straight. So now I can line these two wires up just like this. I got this end lined up as close to even as I can get it. And I'm going to bring all the way down to this end. I am going to take the flush side of my cutters and point them towards the ends that I want to work with here. And I'm going to bring that in, and I'm going to snip this end. Then I just need to do a little tiny dash of filing on this end to make sure that I have a nice flush end here. So once again, now that I have my ends nice and even and filed flush, I'm going to line my two wires up and get out my Sharpie and a ruler. If you don't have the mat I showed you earlier, that's perfectly fine. Just use a ruler. So what I need to do is I need to find the center. So I'm going to get these wires onto the mark where they go, and I'm going to take my Sharpie pen And I'm going to mark right there at 3 inches and mark the center on both of my wires. So now I'm going to use my flat nose pliers again. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but I've got the nose tip of my pliers underneath the mark, which is sitting right there. I am going to get as close to the end of this pliers as I can get with the tip of my pliers right here. And I'm just going to take my thumb and I'm going to push my wire to about this degrees right here. I'm going to take my pliers and put it on the other side of the bend, like that, and then I'm going to push like that until I have something that looks like this right here. And I'm going to do the same thing with my other wire. Line my mark up as close to the tip with the nose underneath the mark. I'm going to bend. I'm going to flip it around, grab that side of the wire, grab it as close to the tip, just like I did on this one, and bend just a little bit until I got my 2 wires looking identical. Now you might be asking yourself why I didn't do both wires at the same time. And the reason is because the side of these pliers is tapered. As you can see, it's really small here at the tip, but it gets wider as you go this way. So basically, you just have to avoid, overdoing one side and underdoing the other side. You just have to work with it. Then you could take your fingers and you can manipulate the wire just a little bit until you get them both even. Just like that. So now I'm just using my fingers to get this shape a little bit more manipulated. So I'm going to make sure that this is where I'm lined up perfectly. If I'm not perfect on my ends, I can fix that later. But the tip right here at the center, which is obviously this point right here, is where we want everything to be perfect this time. So we're going to line that up just as close to perfect as we can get it. And it helps if you use your finger, just like this. But basically, once you're going to do that, I'm just going to start gently pushing these wires towards each other, just like that. I just want to bring that shape in just a little bit. Maybe to about, hang on, I'll tell you exactly what kind of an angle we're looking at here. I have so many tools, but measuring tools are awesome. So to determine what your angle is, you can use a little cheapo protractor like I have right here. And you would line this one edge here along the flat right there. And put your point as close to the middle as you can get it, like that. And you're going to bring it around till you've got, fairly decent angle. You don't want 90 degrees. You want it a little bit off. So I'm looking at mine here. And bring it around till it comes around to about the 60 mark. And then double check and make sure they're still even. Just like that. And if you want your point a little bit sharper, you can always bring your flat nose pliers back in and manipulate it till you get the point looking however you prefer for it to look. So now I'm ready to create this rounded look here on the sides of my components. I got this little bottle of liver of sulfur here. You can use, this is the point I was trying to make earlier. You can use anything for a mandrel. You have this vintage patina. You could use that little bottle, depending on how big you want the arc of your curve. So I'm going to try this one. I'm going to hold these 2 wires lined up just like this, and I'm going to slide this little bottle right into the V. And I'm going to try to hold everything into position, so it might be a little hard for you to see. But then I'm just going to start taking my wires here and pinching them around. And I want these wires to cross over. But I want them to cross over as evenly as I can get them so that I have, approximately the same amount of wire on each side of this little X here at the top And you might take you a little time to manipulate it and get it the way you want. But just keep working at it till you get the look that you're going for. Try to keep your wires positioned right, together. And then just form a little shape. Then you can let go. Just like that. So let me tell you how I did these, the tops of these practice earrings here. I made 2 eye loops, one on each side of the wire. And I didn't like the way a jump ring looked just set into it. It pulled them apart too much, so I took it took me forever to try to do it, but I took this tiny, tiny little jump ring, and I crossed it underneath the eye loops on both of the necks of both sides of the wire, closed it up. It was really ridiculously hard to do. And I did it on both of them, but it made it look really kind of cute. But that was before I figured out my new approach to crossing over at the neck. So I'm going to do it. You take this technique and apply it to these shapes. So to do this, I am going to get my shapes lined up on one side perfectly. Doesn't matter about this side right now because I'm only working with these 2 wires right here. So I'm going to get everything lined up as good as I can and holding on to these 2 wires on the left side. Now I'm going to bring in my handy dandy multi-step looping pliers and I'm going to form my eye loop. I'm going to grab those 2 wires and I'm going to make sure that I can't feel anything above the barrel, which I can. So I'm going to shift it just a little bit. If these 2 wires are not even, now's the time to fix that. So you can just use your file if you need to. If you need to take your snippers to make sure that they're both even, you can use your snippers, but you want them both as close to even as you can get them right there. And flush. Nice and smooth. So let's grab them right here. I'm going to be using that small barrel again, so I'm going to grab with that barrel farthest away from me because when I roll loops, I roll them away from myself. So I'm going to start rolling that loop. I've got it around. I'm going to open up slightly and finish the loop. Just like that. A little awkward trying to do all this on camera. So now I've got my loops. Well, this one right here is not formed like I want it to, so I'm going to have to fix that one. I'm going to come in here and fix that loop. Now I have my loops formed. Always check before you move on. So now I have this for my shapes. And I have my eye loops formed. And I'm ready to create the neck and wrap around. So for this step, I'm going to be concerning myself with the right side of my wires. So I want to get everything lined up nice and neat. I want to check to see if my ends are even, which I've got a little tiny bit of unevenness there. So I'm just going to use my file and straighten it up. If you need it, if it was a big difference, you can use the flush cutters to even it up. So once again, I'm just using all these different fingers here to apply tension and pressure and to hold my 2 components together in the right shape. I don't want them crossing over each other or anything else like that at this point. Now I just need to determine where I want to break the neck down on this right-hand side wire so that I can wrap it across here. So what I'm going to do is basically just eyeball it. So about right there. And I'm going to grab those chain nose pliers and I'm going to bring them in here. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to come down just a little bit further because I want a little bit more wrapping wire than I had last time. So let me just double check what I'm doing. So once I figured out where I want to make my bend, I am going to go ahead and just use my chain nose or my flat nose pliers, just like we've been doing. and get it close to the tip as I can. I'm going to go ahead and do both wires at the same time this time. I'm just going to push them over. Now here's what I have. Once again, I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to grab that wire all the way up to the bend. And I'm going to bring it to the back just a little bit like that, so that it lays over nicely across my wire. Now this time, in order to preserve as much of my original shape as I can, I want to wrap this wire, but I'm going to wrap it downwards, going this way. I'm going to use a couple of sets of pliers here to do my wire wrapping, because most of the time when you're doing wrap loops and things like that, you will be using 2 pliers. So I'm going to take this flat nose plier and I am going to grab my eye loop. It's perfectly even with the neck of the base wire as I can. And I am going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm going to wrap this wire around slowly, because I'm trying to preserve my shape here, but I need to get that tight. So I'm going to bring my chain nose pliers in and try to pinch that. I might have to take them off. I'm going to pinch this bend as tight as I can get it, like that. Then I'm going to go ahead and re-grab this loop. Then I'm going to bring my chain nose pliers around. And this is a little bit of hard wire to work with. It's 20 gauge. And wrapping it is a little tough. So just take your time. And you want to bring it. Oops, I'm sorry, guys. Had my work flipped. We're going to come through this hole. I'm going to have to take it off these pliers. I'm going to have to do it with my fingers here. And we're going to bring it around and bring it back over the wire. So see, now it's coming through the center. And what I want it to do is come up and around and go back over my base wire. So take your time so you do not really mess up your shape. Get it as tight as you can. Know that you can use your pliers to manipulate it, because once again, we're not using that plated, finished, coated wire now. We can manipulate it as much as we want with our pliers. We just have to do a little cleanup work at the end if we have to. So that's not very tight. I'm just going to keep working until I get it as tight as I can up to this previous coil. I might have to grab this base wire just like that. And I'm going to bring it around. You can see it's a little bit tough to work with. Pull it as tight as I can. Now I can tighten my coils using the tip of my pliers. Push those together, just like that. And we're looking pretty good. I'm going to flatten my work out just a little. Try to keep everything on the same plane. And I just want to bring that wrapping wire one more half round to the inside like this, so that when I snip it off, I can tuck the sharp point onto the back of the earring base wire. Alright, so I'm going to continue working till I get my coils nice and tight, and I'll come back and show you guys how to snip the end off. So now I'm ready to snip off this little end. And I'm going to take the flush side of my cutters once again, and I'm going to get in as close to that wire as I can get right there. The flush side going towards the portion I'm keeping. I'm going to snip off that end. I am going to take my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to continue pushing that end down until it's no longer poking up and having a sharp point. Use your chain nose pliers and just get it into place. So I've got that tucked in pretty good using my chain nose pliers. So now I'm just going to take my bottle again, and I'm going to just reshape my shape just a little bit, because that's the beauty of dead soft wire. If you misshape your component just a little bit, you can always come back in and fix it really fairly easily. So there we have a beautiful shape. Very, very similar to this shape. All right, so I'm getting ready to do the same thing to this earring, but before I start, I'm going to tell you a little something. I'm not crazy about the way this came out here at the top, but before I can change it, I need to make sure that both of my components come out even, so I need to do the same thing on this one that I did on this one, and then I can make any adjustments or changes to both earrings at the same time, and they'll still come out looking the same. So to do that, we're going to just do exactly what we did on the previous component, which was to grab our wire with our flat nose pliers right there and bend it towards, bend it downwards like that so that we have that shape again. Bring it over, and we're going to wrap it around. And I'm not going to make you watch me do that. I'm just going to do the exact same thing I did here, and I want the exact same amount of loops. So on the front of my earring, I need 3 coils. On the back, I have 2.5. So to get these fixed to where I am a little bit more satisfied with them, here's what I've done so far. I have taken my mandrel, and I have shaped up my components, got them the way I want them looking. I'm lining them up, and I had this little extra length of wire here at the top. I should have done a little bit differently, but I didn't, so now I have to do a little fixing. So I've got everything as lined up as closely as I can get it. And you can see that one of my eye loops is going this way, and this one is going around in the opposite way. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to take my flush cutters here. And at this point, I could flip them around both the same way. And all I've got to concern myself with here is this eye loop. So I'm going to take my flush cutter in, and I'm just going to cut off a little portion of this eye loop, just this front curve. I'm going to put the flush cutter, obviously, to the part I want to keep, which is the part rolling back this way. I'm going to get rid of this part so it's on the front. So I'm just going to cut that off. Now it'll be a lot easier to do this wire exactly the same because I can line them up. And make sure I cut in the same spot. Like that. Now I'm going to re-roll my loops. I'm taking my chain nose or my flat nose pliers, and I'm just straightening those loops up a little bit like that. Then I'm just going to simply redo my loops, and I am going to want the loops to be opposite. Because of the way I wrapped the top, you'll notice that the 3 loops on the front side of my earring on this component are on the left. The 3 wraps on the front side of this component are on the right. So basically, I want my loops to go the same direction on each earring. So I'm just going to go ahead and do them one at a time. I am going to take my looping plier and use the smallest one. And I'm going to determine, do I want my loop going this way or this way? So I think I'm going to go back the other way. I'm going to go like this. Here's the front. Here's the barrel I'm rolling on. Make sure I can't feel any wire. And I'm just going to roll a loop. And scooch my little coils back up if they get out of whack. And I'm just going to make myself a nice little closed loop. Center it on the base wire. Like that. And now when I do the second one, I want to make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So this one I rolled over the coils. I'm going to do it the same way on this side. Here's my coils. Here's the barrel I'm rolling on. And I'm going to go ahead and roll my loop on this side. And slide my coils back up. Center my loop on the base wire. So now I have my earrings perfectly matching, wrapped close so that the components look really nice. I didn't have to fiddle with all of this extra stuff I did over here on my practice ones. And so now I have 2 beautiful little matching frames that I can use to make the same exact pair of earrings. Now, because I'm using dead soft bronze wire on my components, before I even begin to think about wire wrapping any beads onto it, I need to harden these wires. And here's a little story about using wires and using hard surfaces such as a steel bench block, different types of hammers. If I want to flatten these wires at the same time as I'm hardening them and change their shape, I would use a metal chasing hammer, because metal against metal against metal will move and reshape this wire. If I just want to harden this wire, I have wire metal against my steel bench plate, but I would be using a rawhide mallet or a nylon hammer or mallet to just tap gently all the way around and harden up the wire. So what you would do, in order to not misshape your particular little wrap section here, you're going to want to shift that off of the edge of the bench block just a little bit, and you're going to start tapping around your wire like this. Roll your component around, continue on, making sure to keep that wire wrapped section off the edge of the bench block so that you don't hammer it accidentally. Flip it over and work the other side. Don't want to bend your wire on that sharp corner, so be careful there. And then test the strength of your wire and see how hard it is. If you need to go a little bit more, just go a little bit more. Do both sides. Now that's a lot stronger and firmer, so I can feel pretty safe about not bending my frame out of shape when I use my lighter gauge wire to wrap my elements in, such as on this earring. So I'm going to go ahead and do my other one, and I'll see you in a few minutes. So I have went ahead and I wire hardened both of my components. I have checked them back to make sure that I didn't misshape them, and if you do, you can always just use your mandrel and go back in and reshape any little boo-boos you might have made. And now these two beautiful matching components are ready to wire wrap into a beautiful beaded earring project. So basically the whole point of today's video was to show you how to you can make beautiful sturdy frames using wire wrapping techniques. Personally, I have struggled with the strength in my hands. I've had several back surgeries and I have a lot of pinched nerves. And I had a lot of recuperation time, and basically it's caused me to have a real weakness in my hands. So I prefer to actually use the soldered approach to making my bead frame components, because for that, and using this technique, I can use 16 gauge wire and lots thicker wires, make a really sturdy frame. I don't have to worry about misshaping and having to rework and do all this stuff that I had to do in these videos here today to show you guys how to get everything looking perfect and correcting any boo-boos. When you measure, cut, file, solder, you can see that if you look at the tutorials over on my website, you'll see it's really quite easy. The only difference is of course that you will have to pickle and do a little bit of filing and polish up your metal when you get done. But it makes for a really sturdy, beautiful frame. Makes for a nice, solid piece of jewelry. And this is just some techniques I've done recently with using the frames I made in the tutorials. And this is all free. It's all over on the website. There's tutorials step by step to make the frame, to do the wire wrapping for these earrings. The wire wrapping is coming out really soon. And then also for this beautiful diamond shape. So this got a little more lengthy than I wanted it to today. So what I'm going to do in a separate video, I'm going to come back and do a wire wrap tutorial and show you guys how to make this version of the earring using some lighter gauge wire and wrapping the beads into the frame. All right, so that's it for today. Head on over to the Alluring Bead Boutique and check out all of this great stuff I've got on the blog. I think these are beautiful. They're beautiful gift ideas. They're beautiful. Really, they don't have a lot of expensive materials in them, so you can actually make some money with them if you're selling on Etsy or selling on your own website. Check out my series if you'd like to start your own jewelry business. Learn how to do your website and all the things that I'm teaching in those series. All right, folks, that's it for today. Have a wonderful time. Thanks for watching.